by middle school teachers on a daily basis, and students are constantly seeking fights in the halls, on the playground, spreading rumors and instigating trouble with their peers. And by learning a concrete method of resolving conflict, children are better prepared to face the difficulties involved in communicating with other individuals. By using self-control and calming strategies, students can learn to stop a problem before it presents itself. The use of support systems can help a student to refine their conflict resolution skills, and by learning alternate ways to communicate their needs, children can better resolve their conflicts individually and peacefully. Increased self-esteem, understanding the needs of others, and expressing feelings in a positive way are the natural byproducts of learning to resolve conflict in a peaceful manner. All right, so for our day one, for the introduction to the unit, the objective is just that students will examine different kinds of hurtful behavior and develop strategies for dealing with hurtful behavior and work with their peers to create an environment in which students treat each other respectfully. It'll start off with a little game. It's called Anger Ball Toss. It's basically just you have like a softball, and the students stand in a circle, and the teacher would start it out and just say, "I feel angry when," and finish the sentence. And you throw it to the next person, and then that person repeats what that person before them had just said, and then they finish the sentence themselves, and everyone in the class gets to participate. And it's just a basic way to start the unit in a easy way for the kids to express themselves without feeling, scared about doing so. And then we'll go into the kids as a class. The teacher would hand out index cards, and all the kids would anonymously write down a hurtful incident that had happened to them, and then the teacher would collect them and read them out loud. It's still anonymous. And then the teacher would group students into different groups, and based on the different situations, there's different kind of situations, there's like bullying, there's name calling, all different kinds. And so each group would have a different kind of category from the hurtful situations, and each group would present a skit on that specific category. And at the end, the kids would write a fake, as a class we'd write a fake kind of contract, just coming up with ways to not hurt each other, and all the kids would sign it. Yeah. And as an assessment, it's just a 1 to 3 point scale based on if they showed creative problem solving strategies, gave clear and persuasive presentation to the class, and helped make the contract. Day 2 is empathy, and it starts off with, the objective is students will be able to help mediate problems among peers and themselves, and students will gain knowledge about conflicts and how to resolve them in an appropriate manner. And it would start out with, okay, my title's wrong, but, one's wrong, sorry.
Okay.
And so it would start off with the kids talking about metaphor, like the metaphors sunny and cloudy to describe their feelings, whether they feel happy or sad in certain situations. And so the actual game that they would play, it's called the empathy game, and it's where you'd have 2 students sit back to back in chairs, and one student, each student would have a sun and a cloud. It's kind of elementary, but it works just the same for middle school kids. They get the point. And they have a sun and a cloud to represent if a scenario makes them feel happy or sad. And this teacher would give a scenario to the 2 students. The scenario would be based on one of the kids as if it was happening to them, and the other kid would have to empathize with the kid who it's happening to. And so they'd give them the scenario. The kid who it's happening to would raise the sun or a cloud, and the other kid can't see it, and so they have to learn to empathize and see if they can think of what that person's feeling. So then they would also raise the sun or the cloud, and just a way for them to get to know each other's feelings. And it's informal. It's just every student has to participate at least once in the game. So, yeah. All right. And so the other
this one should be
peer
mediation.
Yeah, peer mediation. Messed them up. So for this, I already read that objective, but it would start out with a scenario given by the teacher, and this based on peer mediation, like a situation where peer mediation would be needed to be used. And the teacher would give discussion questions based off it. And then as a class, we would just talk about what peer mediation is. And it's informal. It's not really teaching the kids to become, trained peer mediators, because that's a whole different program that a lot of kids go through. But it's just a way to help the kids realize how they can deal with a situation if, like, 2 of their friends are fighting or something, how they can help in a certain situation if it's appropriate. And So we'll talk about the different scenarios in which peer mediation needs to be used and when it's appropriate or when it needs to be handled in a different way. And in groups, there's 3 different worksheets for peer mediation that I found. There's a whole book I found about peer mediation. It was great, and it helps kids realize what scenarios you would use it in, how to use it, different strategies to calm people down, stuff like that. So, and the assessment tool, the teacher would just grade the worksheets filled out by the students, and it's just informal based on the class discussion. All right, and day 4 is getting in touch with yourself. And the objective is students will be able to get in touch with themselves and their feelings, and students will begin to understand what triggers them in certain situations as well. And the first activity I found is called Moving Day Activity, and it's just all students in the class will receive a bunch of paper clips, and this is more of like a do-it-at-home kind of activity, but students will receive a bunch of paper clips, and they're supposed to put them in one pocket, and they go throughout their day for like 24 hours, and they just think about, or every time that they put themselves down, or every time that they think something bad about themselves, it doesn't even have to be verbal, they take a paper clip out of one pocket and put it in the other. And then the next day, as a class, we'll discuss how many paper clips ended up in the other pocket. So that's how many times that they put themselves down in a day. And so that's just a way to kind of get in touch with the feeling. It's a lot of feeling unit, but
effective,
very, yes. And so then we have a class discussion about how they would react in certain situations, and there's more worksheets for them, but there was one worksheet, it was called Triggers, Traps, and Traumas, and it's just a way for them to figure out what exactly it is that sets them off in certain situations and what would make somebody go off on somebody else and start a fight. The next worksheet would be pushing aside aggressive behavior, how to stop the aggressive behavior before it starts, and a letter to you, and it's just a student writing a letter to themselves, telling them, how to calm themselves down in those certain situations. And once again, worksheets just be handed in and graded upon the answers given and the effort put forth by the students. And for day 5, it was called Putting Down Put-Downs, and the objective is to show students how to recognize put-downs and being able to realize the level of how these harmful words or actions can hurt one another. And it would just start off with, we as a class discuss about what a put-down is, and students would be able to list off a bunch of put-downs that they hear every day in school, or at home that they've had said to them or that they've overheard being said in school. And as a class, we'll keep a track of all the different put-downs we hear every day, and also ones that kids hear on television programs, movies, songs, just what they hear throughout their day. And there's a worksheet for the tracking of the different put-downs, and there's also a pain scale that I found, and kids have to rate how a put-down makes them feel. Like, it's a scale of 1 to 10, and it's just, they rate how bad a certain put-down can be, because some are worse than others. And as a class, we'll just summarize and talk about why people find it necessary to use put-downs every day, if they think they're appropriate and how they make people feel, and pretty much what to do if someone says a put-down to you and how to deal with it. So.
All right. Excuse me, I'm getting a little cold, so I might go in and out with my voice here. But day 6 is I'm assertive, not aggressive. The students will learn about you statements versus I statements. An example of a you statement would be, you're always late to class. And then to turn that around, the example of the I statement would be, I feel frustrated and unappreciated when you arrive late to my class. The students then will discuss how you statements and the I statements make the students feel, which one is better, and then they will also learn how to change their you statements into I statements. Yes, I got confused writing these, but it's the you statements are the bad ones, the ones you want to stay away from. The I statements are the good ones. And then the class will have a group discussion on how they alter them and how some of the groups' I statements differ from each other, and how that is good to communicate their different feelings. The I statements are the, and that's wrong up there, it's actually the you statements are the bullying and the aggressive statements.
I was thinking that.
Yeah, no, that's wrong up there. Alright, and then the next day. Day 7 would be calm down. The students would learn that sometimes there are things in life that people get angry with or they get upset, and those things are called trigger events. They happen all the time in many different places, and we would mostly focus on the ones that would happen in school, but they need to be aware that these trigger events happen all the time, and how the human body responds to the different trigger events by bad thoughts, by having muscle tension in their face, arms, all the different body parts, and also your nervous system would respond differently at increased heart rate, extra blood flow, dry mouth, sweaty palms, all that kind of things. So students would be able to recognize possibly, maybe they didn't know they were in a trigger event, but I felt like this and had these bad thoughts, so maybe that is a trigger event. And then we would go through how to, not necessarily prevent them, but how to take a deep breath and slow down. It's called the keep calm procedure. The first thing the students would do would be to tell themselves to stop, immediately stop what you're doing, calm down. You would slow your breath. You would take 2 deep breaths in, count to 2 as you're holding your breath, and then breathe out as you're counting to 5, and repeat if necessary. If you need to do it again, go ahead. And then also, once you are calm, praise yourself, which is a big part of it. You calmed yourself down, that's good. Now let's communicate. And then there would be different examples throughout the lesson for the students to practice this. They'd also talk about different self-calming techniques. The count to 10 method, I think is, I know I use that one all the time, counting down from 10 to calm yourself down. And then the assessment would be for students to write about a trigger event and how that time could have benefited or did benefit from a keep down method. Day 8 is Lean on Me. The students would listen to the song Lean on Me, either by Bill Withers, who actually performed the song originally, or the Glee cast. I like their version better personally, but it doesn't matter. They would learn about what it means to lean on someone, what a support system is, and who is someone you could turn to lean on or for support. They would get examples of who could be in that support system, and then you would have a discussion on support systems and different personal situations that you needed a support system or possibly would have benefited from a support system. Day 9 is listen to me please, I need your help. I know a lot of times, in actually all of our mid-level classes, they talk about how mid-level students feel that they're not being listened to. And so this lesson focuses on the fact that even students need to listen to one another. It's not just the adults we do need to listen to, but the students need to listen and make sure they're also communicating effectively as well. So they would role play different examples of talking and listening, and then from there they would have a discussion on what makes a good listener and if you're effective at getting your point across. Then they would discuss different conflicts between students and adults, who you can turn to, what you would do, and then they would write a Dear Advisor letter, which is a spin-off of the Dear Abby letter. Just kind of like, this is a situation, what should I do? And then those will be used later on in our units. Day 10 is the last day of the culmination. The students will discuss different conflicts that could arise at school or elsewhere, what was learned throughout the unit and how that could be applied to these situations. The students would look at 3 different scenarios and find see if they could find the me and I statements and how they could be changed, or the you statements and change them into the I statements. Then they would also look to see if a support system would have been helpful, what the character might be feeling, tying it back into the beginning, and what the problem is, what the aggressive behavior is, and then also trying to understand where that character is coming from. In some of the scenarios, it's very easy to see where the character is coming from. Some of them, you have to dig a little bit deeper. And then the students would, for their assessment, write a paragraph about what they learned from this lesson and how they can apply it in their real life. And then the evaluation was just a small little survey that we would hand out on what was learned, what was most beneficial, what was the least beneficial, what you would change, what you liked, all the basic things that you would cover, and also how you would apply this unit to your real life. So again, trying to get them to realize that this is applicable to their real life. And then they would be graded on participation in the lessons and also the survey as well. And that's it.
Any questions?